Hey, what's up everybody? Ed the Pond Professor here. I'm coming to you from Oakville, Ontario, just outside of Toronto. We are working on a project. You can see the high rise right behind me. We are doing a rooftop garden. This is a renovation project. There was an existing garden space on top of this roof structure, been completely removed. We're coming in to do a decorative water feature in and around the garden, as well as a pondless waterfall, just to kind of create that little bit of ambiance. We have a few challenges associated with this. So I'm gonna do a quick walkthrough, and then I think we're gonna head down into the parking garage, which is actually underneath what I'm standing on, to show you some of the challenges that we have here. You can see the condominiums in and around the space. We are working in this area right over in here. So there is going to be a pergola, almost right where I'm standing. It's going to be a pondless waterfall, kind of tucked right over in between these two structures. This is a air shaft. So this goes down into the parking garage that's down below. And then over here we have skylights, obviously, to let in some natural light. All of this gravel material that has been put on top of the roof structure is here for a drainage layer. So that allows any excess water that comes down through the soil media a place to go. So it's going to take the water over to a series of drainage structures that are built into the roof to take excess water away. Now on top of all of this, they are covering the gravel up with this geotextile cloth. This is going to allow water to permeate through, but it's going to keep the soil from clogging up the gravel layer. They are also using an engineered soil mixture here. It's a mixture of organic compounds. It has like some wood chips and things like that inside of it, as well as this very light, almost like a clay type material that has been dried. Has high porosity, allows for moisture, but it doesn't take up a lot of weight. So it gives us that lighter weight mass, which is going to be better for this roof. Now over here, this is where the pond is going to be located. This is the main water feature. You can see the driving areas people kind of pull in. People are going to have access through. You can see these walkways that have been put in place. Right now, Austin and Chuck are getting some of the measurements. We are also marking out where the existing drainage is located, and he's also marking out the area for our wetland filtration system. But it's going to be a long, narrow pond system kind of stretching off into this direction. And then it's going to terminate down in this corner where our pump vault is going to be located. And then this is going to connect into a dry creek bed, which connects to the pondless waterfall located way over there. These are some of the stones that came from the site originally. So we're going to be reusing these materials. Over here we started drilling some of the holes through the concrete. This is going to be for electric. That hole on this side is going to be for water. This is for makeup water. So now what I want to do is I want to walk actually back down into the parking structure so we can kind of get a better idea of actually what we're dealing with from below, and you can see kind of everything underneath here. So let's take a walk. See all the different stones staged over here. This is what's going to be brought up to the top for us to work with. And actually, right above us, that little hole right there is for our water. So here's our copper pipe. We're going to have water coming up and over, up to the water feature above. And then our decorative water feature is actually sitting right there. So we tried to line everything up with these columns because they have the highest load-bearing capacity. So you can see that coming up. We have thicker concrete right here. So this is where some of our bigger stones will be located, directly above this. The concern is the weight above. The concrete here, 9.5, 10 inches thick. So we want to make sure that we are not putting too much weight on the roof. So this is where they're offloading materials up above. So they put these columns in place to help hold everything up, just as a safety precaution. But what this reminds me of was a very difficult time for AQUASCAPE history when the roof collapsed in our office. We had thousands of these posts installed to help hold the building up during the reconstruction process. We're here at the south end of the building. 2 weeks ago, we had record snowfall that hit the Chicagoland area. Just this past weekend, we had unseasonably warm temperatures that started thawing everything out. February 13th, 3:30 p.m., the roof of our covered parking came down. Here we are right at ground zero, and that is a breathtaking sight behind me. As bad as it all looks, it's actually just the covered parking area that actually came down. And if you're anything like me,
This is actually some pretty cool stuff. I mean, just look at that. I mean, that's a 700-foot span of the roof that has come down, and just the power of all that stuff as it's twisted up all these steel beams and girders and everything. It's a pretty unbelievable sight.
Nice foggy morning here in Ontario. Construction has started. The geotextile fabric down on top of the drainage layer, and that's because we need a cushion material on top of all the angular stone. Then we're going to put our rubber EPDM liner on top of that. And then underneath the large boulders, we're going to come in with a layer of this structural foam. So that's going to provide the necessary cushioning as well as keeping things lighter. Alright, well, we have been working to get the filter set up because everything is going off of this elevation. We dug that centipede down. You can kind of see this is a modified wetland filter. I normally don't do it like this, but we had to in this application, and it's just because of the way elevations work, and we had to keep weight down. So these aqua blocks down here on the bottom are not going to be doing that much. They are going to help distribute a little bit of water. I normally have a layer of aqua blocks on top, so it is a little bit confusing. Our water level is actually only coming up about 8 inches above all that stuff. Now that this is in place, we're going to block off the front over here, a layer of heavy duty fabric, and that's because what's going to happen here is we're going to have water being pumped into our centipede, and the water is going to want to take the path of least resistance. So we don't want the water just flowing aimlessly wherever we want. We want the water to flow up. So this is an upflow biological filtration system. So we want to make sure that all of that water is going to flow up through those aqua blocks and through that flow cell, go up through the gravel, and then into the pond. We don't want to short circuit it. All right, we're making great progress here. The back edge of the filter right over here is going to butt up against, there's going to be a walkway, and then there's going to be a little planting bed over in here. We're going to have some big rocks along this back edge to hold everything in place. It's going to be a layer of gravel going in between. We're using this structural foam underneath everything, and that's because we're trying to keep the weight down. So we don't want to use gravel, we don't want to use any other backfill material. Water level is going to be about 4 inches below the top of this rock. So we're going to be coming in here with our specialized soil mixture, and we're going to pack that in behind the liner against the back of those stones. The front side is going to get the river stone, more river rock along this back edge over in here. This will be a planting area, which will blend in perfectly with some of the annual plants and things like that that they're going to have on this back edge. So the idea is to create a beautiful serene setting, walkways, pathways going through everything, as well as little glimpses of the water feature from key points around the property. Right over in this section, there's going to be a big bridge that's going to cut across. That's going to allow people access to another part of the garden. We just finished wrapping stuff up here for the evening, and as you can see, we got bars, we got metal, we got pallets. We're putting all types of stuff. We're putting weight on top of the liner because we're talking about storms coming in tonight, of course, which is going to blow stuff around and cause problems for us tomorrow. So we did make good progress. We got the pumps in. We got the filtration system set up. Again, just figuring out all the different elevations, working with the engineers and general contractor here on the site has been the challenge just here in the beginning. But once we got everything moving, really started taking place here. So the bad weather that they said was coming, it came. Theme for the entire year basically for us. So here it is, trying to wrap up the season. Snow coming in behind this. Thankfully, the only good thing is there's no mud. We're working on top of a rooftop. It could be a lot worse. So what we're trying to do right now is we're getting ready to set this bridge. It's kind of a funky situation. Wetland filter over here. This will have, going over these rocks, 4 inches or so of water. It's going to kind of come through here. This is going to be a little bit of a deep pocket. Love the look of some of these rocks. Got some nice character to them. But now this bridge, a little bit overkill in my opinion, but they're reusing it. It's going to go across right in here. It's going to be difficult for us to do stonework underneath the bridge. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to set the bridge on these concrete blocks. We did our dry fit, didn't work the way we wanted it to. We built these columns up over here inside the liner. You can see our rubber lining right here. And then what we'll do is we're going to take this liner, kind of go up to the back of these blocks. We'll fill this all in between, and then we'll get our soil pushed in up against the back of it. So we have two features here. We have a decorative ecosystem pond. There's going to be a dry stream bed that's going to kind of wind in between the decorative ecosystem pond and then a pondless waterfall. That pondless waterfall, it's the sight and sound of a waterfall without an actual large body of standing water at the bottom, which is where the name pondless comes in. Right over here, we have Austin and Ernest. They're taking out some of that crushed stone. That stone is creating a drainage layer on top of the roof structure. Now, when everything is completed on this side, it'll kind of look like this. So you can see these are vent shafts over here, so you can see where the elevation is located. That vent shaft is another one right back over on this side, and we have one over here where our ecosystem pond is located. Where the guys are kind of clearing everything out, where the pondless waterfall is going to go. We'll have AQUABLOCks going all the way around this, because this entire area, this is going to be built up with soil all the way to here. This would be a large planting bed. But if we have 3 feet of soil mounded up right here, it's too much weight for this particular area. So we're going to take some of more AQUABLOCks and we'll build up around this, and then we'll cover that with a geotextile fabric, and then we can put that soil in there to create the desired mounding effect. The nice thing about using the AQUABLOCks also, it'll still allow for that drainage layer. So it'll allow for water movement along the entire bottom. We got Chuck over here strapping up some big rocks. Another one of our challenges here is the machine had to be 5,000 pounds or less. That's an impressive lift right now for that machine. So that Cat 302 is really doing a good job for us. We are trying to make everything as light as possible. So we are using structural foam to keep things light. We don't want to use soil. We're going to end up putting foam on top of this, and our waterfall is actually going to be built on top of this. So this will literally be just a huge hollow space underneath the entire waterfall. Waterfall is set at the appropriate elevation. Our soil level is going to be all the way up here, and it's going to start tapering down. They're trying to disguise skylights and things like that. So this will be kind of a mounded area, lots of vegetation coming around. And this is not a typical installation. We have to build everything up. We're setting all of our boulders, we're setting the bridge, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this rubber liner, we're gonna fold it up behind those rocks, and then we're going to fill this entire space with that lightweight soil mixture. Our filtration system is going to be this wetland over here. We have our snorkel right here. This is going to allow for convenient access periodically, typically once a year. And then we're going to put layers of river stone on top of this. That river rock, well, this is not river rock here, this is crushed stone, but river rock is basically a rounded version of this. Every square centimeter, 360 degrees, all the way around this piece of stone is basically a surface. And this surface becomes home for microorganisms. The microorganisms we're actually going to put in here. We have created our own specific blend of bacteria, beneficial enzymes that will colonize, literally live all the way around that gravel. They are going to help to detoxify the water. They have the ability to absorb nitrogen and phosphorus out of the water. And this is an evolutionary adaptation. These organisms developed and evolved over thousands and thousands of years of living in aquatic ecosystems. So basically what we're doing is we're seeding the entire system with the appropriate blend to get the desired results of water quality. So this is going to be our pond system here. Dry creek bed is going to wrap around this back section. It's going to tie into that waterfall over on the other side. This is going to be a really, really cool outdoor living space. So all construction projects have their share of challenges. The Oakville project, it had a lot of them. So I got pulled off of the project, had to come and do a large liner project. I was hoping to get back up to Oakville, but they got hit with a snowstorm. They had multiple challenges, and it didn't make sense for me to go back up there because we knew we weren't going to be able to get it finished. So what Chuck and the team ended up doing was they had work side by side with the general contractor to bring in specific amounts of soil. This project was a little bit different. We had to build up on top of a flat roof, have the liner stand up behind our rocks, and then they were blowing in this soil all the way around the outside perimeter to hold everything in place, completely backwards. But it was the only way we could make this work. So what we do is we lay those AQUABLOCks down, and then we wrap them in a geotextile, and it's air. It's a hollow area. It's going to allow for water movement underneath, so it's light. Each one of those AQUABLOCks has a large cubic volume, subtracting away that from the soil equation, which is giving us a little bit more
opportunity to do some more stonework. What we were doing, we were coming in, putting in aqua blocks, saving some weight on one side, and then using bigger boulders on the other side to create the desired waterfall effect. But again, this is the nature of it. We pushed it right to the very, very edge of our time limit. The weather beat us. I know this is a challenge. Hopefully you enjoyed this vlog. You will definitely be seeing more about this project. I actually have a couple diagrams and things as well. I will probably post some pictures and stuff on that, just so you can see some of the work that we did figuring out the weights. You know, how do we figure out how much a rock weighs? Because that's what makes this project really interesting, and that's what was fun, working with the engineers on this project, as well as a good challenge. I like a good challenge. The whole idea of the Pond Professor vlogs is to show some of the behind the scenes stuff, show you all those little details, the steps in between the steps. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We'll see you on the next one.